Hello again, everyone. Thanks for joining me. This is just a beginning to a video I made a couple of weeks ago where I went out to the RV and showed first a brief tour of the place where we store it, and then I started the engine and gave a tour of the instrument panel with all of the monitoring systems operating. Now, the only thing that's missing is a new instrument I have that will be installed when the weather's a bit nicer in the springtime. And this is something I've wanted for a while, and this is my airspeed indicator. And this is it's a device designed for an ultralight airplane, so the speed ranges from 0 to 120 kilometers an hour, which is more than adequate for the RV. So all I have to do is mount it and then run a hose through the firewall out to the front of the RV so I can run a ram air tube there, and of course the differential pressure will give us an indication of airspeed. So that's going to be fun to have that added to everything, and I think that's probably all the money I'm going to be able to spend if I don't get really get into trouble and stuff. So, but anyhow, so hopefully those of you who enjoyed the cockpit tour before will enjoy this one, because now everything's lit and you can see the details and what I actually look at while I'm driving. I find it very interesting to look at how the vehicle's performing and how it's driving and how I can drive it to optimize fuel mileage and all the rest of it. I just find that makes the miles go faster, and I find it interesting, especially if I'm driving alone or the person I'm with is having a nap or something like that, or whatever. I just find that an interesting kind of technical challenge while I drive the RV. So hopefully you enjoy this, and thanks for watching. It's late January, and so what I do every winter is I drive the RV for about every 2 weeks. I'll drive it for about an hour. If it's above freezing, which it barely is here today, then I also try to cycle some of the systems, open the slides and things like that, and just move things around a bit. So we'll see what happens. So I'm taking you along here today so you can see the vehicle as it is, and we'll inspect it and see what we've got. It's been about 2 weeks since I've been in it, so here's the front of the RV behind me now. And we'll go on the sides, we'll have a quick look at the tires and see what else is going on with this and make sure we're in good shape. So the RV is packed. Try and keep it out of the sun here if we can. Got this storage area here outside of Newmarket, which has been good to us. And here's our slot number 6. So we'll go down the side of the RV here, and the tires look fine on both sides, both the front and the back one, as far as I can tell. See the right down here, come around the back of it, and again there doesn't seem to be anything amiss. We'll come around to this side, and again everything's closed and locked, and there's no sprung latches. I'm going to open the propane and turn it on so we can get some heat inside the coach. This gas strut here has burst, so I have to replace it when the weather's a bit nicer. But that happens because of the road spray and whatever else. So we'll lock that up. Of course, propane cupboards never lock. And we'll come along here and see what's in the coach. Kind of wonder, when I do this, I always like to breathe the air and just see what I've got in here. We have, it's a bit dark now, let's change the ISO so we can see. There we go. And so we have the slide in, of course, right now, and the RV, as much as we can make it at this time of year, is sterile. So we have 6 or 7 mouse traps in the RV. There's no food, no paper products, nothing that would make it interesting, we hope, to the little visitors. Now we've been very fortunate when it comes to that. It's only been at our mechanics location and at one campground where we had trouble with mice. And other than that, we've done pretty well. Look, Harvey looks in pretty good shape here right now. So we'll just pan out here. And what I'm going to do is we'll get some heat on, and then we'll fire up the engine and give a tour of the dash with all the systems running. So this is the cockpit of the RV, and with everything sort of fired up. And this is just the general view of it. I got the engine running right now. So what I propose to do is in a minute sit down and show you how these systems work. Alright, so we're in the cockpit now, and we'll start right over here on the extreme side. This is a light here that I have connected so that when my generator starts I know that it's on, as well as the indication on the panel. Unfortunately, the generator's been giving us a bit of trouble still, and I doubt if it'll start right now. We'll give it a try here for a second. So that's over here on the panel. I think it's fuel starved. This light is not reliable. As you can see that we have no power here, which is what matters. The generator is not running. And so we'll just disengage the logic there. Anyhow, moving over, we have a checklist here. And these are things that I ensure that I do before I pull away. These are things I forget. Retracting the step, the propane ISO valve, auxiliary power to the refrigerator, the cushion. We have a table fold down thing that rattles when we drive, so we put a cushion on it. Is the shower head on the floor of the shower so it doesn't fall off when we're driving? Is the leveling system disengaged? The blind on the other side that shines into the, it allows us to see. We want that up, and of course I sometimes put my cell phone text on audio so if people text me I can hear it. We come to the 12 volt switch panel. The 12 volt switch panel is something I've installed which allows me to incorporate a great number of 12 volt systems. The first three here that you see that I haven't turned on, but I'll do so now, and I'll deploy them. You can see on the panel the little blue lights here, and I have 12 of them. Unfortunately, with this particular model, these lights here don't light up in the nighttime. So this panel is almost completely dark. You have no idea where everything is. The only lighting you get is in the standard, the speedometer area here. And this is also true on this side too. For these lightings, except for the heater switches, you really have no idea where anything is. And so and this shows up pretty nicely right here. This is my map light, and it comes on. Of course, this does not light up, but you at least get the switch, these little blue LEDs show us where things are going, and it works extremely well. On this side, some of these lights actually turn on and they glow when they're on, but the problem is you can't find them, and even if you do, you still can't necessarily read the name. So it's unfortunate, which is otherwise a very nice RV. So the nice people at Canadian Tire were able to find this, and so I put it in. So we'll just turn those off now, and we'll deselect these three circuits. And so what we're left here then, I'll just refocus this a bit. What we're left here now, this final one controls the second panel, and so then I have four things here. This is generally, this one here is for my battery monitor and temperature system, which right now the battery's dead in that. Then I have my cell phone charger, which you'll see in a minute. Then I have two GPSs here. I have an older one and a newer one, which I put in the RV. And so let's first go to that battery monitor. You can see the orange one down here, and when things are working, let's put it like that maybe. Well, I don't know, it's hard to get to it. You can see there it's reading pretty good. That's the battery voltage on the house batteries in the RV. What you get on the blank scale to the left is the time and the temperature, but like I said, the AAA batteries had it, and we'll replace that later. The next thing you see here is a Magellan 315 GPS. This is probably on 30 years old, or getting close to it, certainly 25. Let's see if we can get rid of the glare, there we go. I put it on this particular setting when I'm driving. It gives me my altitude, my speed, my heading, and my distance if I have selected a waypoint, which is quite nice. The other GPS I carry is a Garmin. It's an older one too. I take it from the car, but it also is useful at times and shows you what's going on. But the primary navigation I'm using right now is just my cell phone with the Google Maps type situation. And of course you can save Google Maps before you leave, so if you lose your internet connection it'll still work properly. But between these two you should be okay, because the right one, the Garmin, doesn't require internet, it's simply just a GPS. And so that's some of the add-ons on this side. This light here was the answer to the previous owner, and they put it on, and it has an incandescent bulb here that will light up this area. But it's pretty bright when you're driving, so I don't use it a great deal. I went to these new ideas. There is a CB radio here, which I don't use very much. I was driving and took the antenna off with a branch, so that's pretty much the end of that. Here's my leveling system, which we rebuilt last year, and it seems to be working, knock on wood. So moving up here onto the panel, this is my new tire pressure monitoring system that I installed at Christmas time, or just around there. The green lights are, we have just the outboard tires. So this vehicle has 6 tires, and this is the 2 front tires and the 2 outer rear tires. Now yes, it'd be nice to have them all, but my view is if I blow an inner tire, the pressure on the outside tire is going to change quite a bit, and it'll be certainly different than the one on the other side. I'll know that there's trouble. The green lights are the temperatures in Celsius degrees. Now here is my Scan Gauge 2, and I really enjoy this unit. This is allows you for a lot of interesting things to measure that you don't always get. In this particular case, they're different temperatures ranges, but we've got the 79 is the maximum coolant temperature in Celsius degrees. On the right side we have the cylinder head temperature in Fahrenheit degrees. On the lower right we have the current temperature of the coolant system in Celsius degrees. And finally we have the transmission temperature in the lower left, the fluid there, in Fahrenheit degrees. So now this of course has many options. You can push these buttons here and get lots of different things, but these are the systems that I monitor in the RV, because I have another system. Both of these are connected to the OBD2 sensor off the engine's computer. So here's the second sensor. This is the Ultra Gauge. Now the Ultra Gauge has a number of different pages to it. The first particular one you see here is my instantaneous kilometers per liter, and the kilometers per liter on the trip as such so far. Instantaneous liters per hour, liters used since I filled the tank, average liters per hour, run time, and so forth. So it's and that's just the one page. Over here I have my vacuum gauge, which runs off the motor. I have my Victron battery monitor, which is quite interesting, and I should actually generally put this at current. So that's the current that's drawn right now, and it's a positive, so that means it's being charged. And this seems to work very nicely. I'm not so sure about the total energy in the battery. I never quite feel that, you know, it says 92% and the battery's, you know, having trouble. It just doesn't seem to marry up, and I don't know what I've done wrong with the setting on that. And then I have a mirror so I can look back into the coach, and then this device I'll talk about in a minute. So this panel here I put in the RV is just paper, and these are thumbtacks in front of these construction paper, and I set these things up, and these allow me to remind me of things I want to check before we start rolling along, so I don't make mistakes. So you can see there's the better focus, so you can see the awnings, the perimeter check, ISO valve, trailer, bicycle mount, porch light, all this kind of stuff, making sure that we don't drive away being stupid. And And then over here I have some basic consumables. On the bottom 6 dials we have fresh water, potable water, gray 1 and 2, block water, and propane. And I update these every morning just to remind me of our circumstances. The top 2 is the leg or day of the trip and how much money we've spent so far on the trip. So this controller here that I built this last year, it was basically the idea of going down the road, whether you go down the road with your propane on or off. And I've done that for years. I've always run down the road with my propane on, and I began to realize that maybe there'd be a way around that. And so what I've done is I have behind this seat here, behind that chair, there's an inverter on the wall. It's a 400 watt inverter, and it comes straight up from the battery, so that's why it's there, because it's close to the battery's location. And so that provides a source of power for the battery, and then, or sorry, for the refrigerator. So we've got a source that's from DC going to AC, and of course when we're running down the road, that's powered by the motor, and so we have a fine feed for that. The display is visible here. If I turn to the right when I'm driving, I can see how many watts it's taking, so I know if it's working or not. And of course the other feed that I could use for the refrigerator would be off of ground support or the generator or whatever. And so what I did was underneath at the back, underneath the refrigerator, put in 2 relays. They have 12 volt coils in them, but 120 or 250 volt rated contactors. And because they're AC, you can run enough current through it and not destroy the relays. So I mounted them on a board, screwed it all to the floor, and then underneath here I ran wires up to this bus transfer switch. And so basically what happens is the following. So let's go back to the switch. When you're these letters, ground support equipment, that's going to be if you're plugged in or the generator's running. The center point is just only gas, and the right side is the auxiliary power supply. So when I'm driving down the road and I've got everything set up, I'm going to turn this knob to aux. And when I do that, the refrigerator will be powered from the inverter. When I do it this way, the refrigerator is powered by nothing, so the gas will automatically come in if it's turned on. And you know, when we get somewhere, we'll turn the gas back on again if that's what we're going to do, or we just power it off electric. Just depends. If we're going to be at the site, then we're running it that way. Then we run it off of the ground support equipment. So it just depends on the situation, and this works very well. I started this on the trip last July, and I was just thrilled. The whole thing has worked just as good as anyone could ask for. So it's very nice. And the RV, then we have our backup camera. This is a standard issue type backup camera, and there's the circumstances outside of the RV. It's see the grass and the landscape just behind the RV. The camera points down fairly sharply, but it's great if you're towing or something, you can see what's behind you. And then we have the console here, and it's funny, you know, it's little things, but this square thing that's in the front of the view now, I didn't realize that's for a small Kleenex box, and it's great. Here's another device I put in the RV, this temperature sensor here. This comes from the refrigerator, and it tells you the temperature in the refrigerator, so all the way down the road I know how my refrigerator's doing, and so when I get somewhere I'm not disappointed. I know some people say just keep the door closed, and yeah, but in the United States when it's 107 degrees in the summertime, I don't know if that's enough. It certainly hasn't been enough when we've stopped in a few places. Now this little console you see here, when we stop, I wanted to set up the audio-visual systems in a more professional way than having cords going all over the place. So on this console here, we set an electric, what looks like an electric fireplace. It sits right on top. It'll actually put heat out as well. And so there's an extension cord in behind here that it plugs into, and then on top of it I put the DVD player, and we have our sound and video cables come out here. This doesn't work, but it go in here, and then I've routed those lines in behind the panel and up this pillar here into the cabinet. You can just see the bottom of it run across there, and so we get a nice kind of a built-in feeling with that, so I kind of really enjoy that. I should also point out, while I have it here, just to my left, underneath here, you see this wooden box here. So what's happened is, when I'm at the back in the kitchen at the table, I have my computer there and I want to play a movie or show something up on the screen here. I've made the cables go through, so when we put the slide up, we just connect the audio and the visual cable, and then this can become an additional monitor to my computer, and we show movies. And when we do that, the sound goes through the radio all through the RV, which is very nice. Over on the navigator side, we'll just focus a bit. You can see I have another one of those power things, and we have a hand spotlight which we can use through the window if we're looking for campsite signs or something like that. Works very nicely. And so there's a cell phone charging station there and all the rest for the navigator, and this pulls out here for a tray full of things, and she also likes to lay stuff on that, and she can have her food or whatever, and my sister puts her knitting stuff on there and things like that, so that also works very nicely. So this is in effect the way the console works. I just would like to get to those other displays. So this is one of the next pages. You can see the number of liters that's been used by computation from the tank and how many liters it thinks is still in there. And this is the distance to exhaustion, or distance to empty, and then the average liters per hour, 10.8. We're getting about 3.5 right now when we're idling. Time to exhaustion, 20 hours, depending on average drive speeds and so forth, and the average liters per kilometer. Okay, or sorry, liters per 100 kilometer, pardon me. Okay, and that's fairly high right now because of the idling and the other things that we've been doing while this vehicle's been sitting here. So we'll page it ahead now. So this is another mileage page. And on the left is the kilometer per liter per trip. So this is, and then the average kilometer per liter for this tank, and the kilometers per hour for this trip, the average speed, of course, because we've been sitting and driving in urban areas, it's slow. The liters per trip on this particular trip. So this is not the tank, and I will reset this before I drive today. And then we have the kilometers of the last trip, 62, roughly to Uxbridge, and it took 1 hour and 34 minutes. So these pages here show some less prominent things. The torque in Newton meters from the engine, the mass flow of air into the engine, the voltage off of the system alternator, the throttle position. So if I guess that's not a throttle position. I'm not sure what that TP1 percentage is there. I thought that'd be a throttle, but I guess it isn't. This is the engine horsepower, 10.4. The load at 46. Let's see. Get a little bit. Okay, maybe it is throttle position. You can see it. It just takes time to respond to it. The intake temperature in Celsius degrees. If you're going down the road at good speed, that's pretty close to the outdoor air temperature. And then the engine temperature in Celsius degrees. So the next page, it shows how many kilometers I've driven since this vehicle's been serviced, how many kilometers it's driven since it was oiled, the kilometers to exhaustion, again the fuel parameters, and the time to exhaustion. So the first two are service intervals, and the second two are these other things here at the bottom. Generally change the oil about every 5,000 K, so there's a lot of time to go yet on what's in the tank. One final item I want to show here is the towing system. So if I got to put my power on. There's the towing system controller. Now right now we're not attached, of course, so it's saying it's lost contact, which is quite right. But when we're driving down the road with the Jeep behind us, this is the device I use to keep an eye on the braking system that we attach to it. And this little switch I have here plugs in the cigarette lighter, and it goes over to the other side here and gives me yet another plugging system, which I use for the tow and also for my tire pressure monitoring system. So we've got cords everywhere here. And thank you for coming along for the tour.